In the previous class, we discussed about the relationship that exists between cloud computing and virtualization. Then we also studied the pros and cons of virtualization. So, and also we studied about Zen para-virtualization. That means how to achieve para-virtualization by using Zen architecture. Today, we are supposed to start with VMware full virtualization. Before that, have a quick look at what we studied in the previous class. See, in the previous class, first we started with server consolidation and virtual machine migration. Server consolidation is nothing but if you bring together multiple servers, then you make it as a single unit, and upon that, if you are installing the VMM, that is the hypervisor, we call it as server consolidation. And in some server consolidation, the biggest advantage is live migration of virtual machines. So what is that live migration of virtual machines? That means when you have two server machines, that is server A and B, which are linked together. Upon both those servers, we have installed VMM. Now here the server A contains 4 VMs and server B contains 2 VMs. Now we want to migrate these two from server B to server A. Now assume that these two VMs are running some applications. Then upon migrating, see, before migrating, look at the diagram how it looks. After migration, you can see here server B contains no VMs and server A contains 6 VMs. That is 4 plus 2 has become 6 now. And here the downtime will be negligible. So it will be like 1 or 2 seconds, maybe even lesser than that. That means the end user will never experience discontinuity of the service. That's one of the biggest advantage of migration of virtual machines. Then after that, we studied about the advantages and disadvantages, that is pros and cons of virtualization. Advantages like reduced spending, since you are using the same machine to deal with multiple guest operating systems and applications, you can always reduce the spending. And sandbox, that means it will not reveal what all the VMs that are installed, what are all the applications that are installed, how it is maintained. Such details will not be exposed to the end users. So that is called as a sandbox. That is, it provides a lot of security about how you have implemented or how you are achieving virtualization. Then portability. So the VMs can be easily ported from one server to another server machine with greater ease. And even when you deal with the programming language virtualization, there also you know how the code compiled in one system can be easily ported to other systems. That's portability. Then efficient use of resources. So what happens when you want to efficiently use your system? The best thing is to do virtualization and go with a number of guest operating system. Then you can utilize the resources to the fullest extent. Then easier backup and disaster recovery. Using the suitable VM tools, you can do backup and recovery of the user data and application data. Then better business continuity. It is very easy to achieve business continuity. That is reliable. You can say it's reliable and more efficient IT operations. Then you can carry out IT operations in an efficient manner. And the disadvantages, upfront costs. So upfront cost means if you want to set up virtualization setup, you need to buy dedicated servers and underlying infrastructure, whatever it is required, and you need to buy few softwares with licensed. It can be dealt only with licensed software, not with the free softwares. And it's a possible learning curve. That means as and when the new threats will expose, possibly it will give you a chance to learn new things. Then performance degradation. So performance degradation happens only when you are maintaining too many VMs in a given server machine, and inefficiency and degraded user experience. See, there is always a difference between like accessing a standalone machine and accessing a networked machine. When you say virtualization, most of the times you'll be accessing it using internet, isn't it? So therefore, when there is low bandwidth and low internet connectivity, obviously it may result in inefficiency and degraded user experience. Then security holes and new threats. See, whenever we do virtualization, most of the times, all the USB ports are disabled. That means there is no chance wherein you can plug in your pen drive and copy something, or take a backup of something or something else. You are not at all supposed to do all such things because of security reasons. Even if you can ask any network admin, if they are dealing with virtualization, for that systems, all the USB ports will be disabled. They use only the uh, DVD. They use only the DVD port. If at all they want to install any, they want to copy any new ISO image of some guest operating system, they will load through DVD-ROM. They will not at all use any USB ports because of security reasons. Then in the previous class, we also learned about para-virtualization, that is Zen. And basically, Zen is an architecture which is based upon x86 machines, Pentium x86 machines. And Zen is an open source initiative. It supports desktop virtualization and server virtualization. And more details about Zen project are found at zenproject.org. Look at the architecture of Zen. If you consider this ring as the operating system, see ring 0, that is the kernel you can see here. So that is where the Zen hypervisor will run, and it can deal with the core functionality, that is memory management, CPU state registers, and device input output. Such instructions will run in ring 0. Then ring 1, user domains. I told about two things, domain 0 and domain U. Students, can you tell me what is domain 0? Hello? Anyone? Arjun, what is domain 0? Hello? Junjar Singh?
Yes, sir.
What is domain 0?
Sir, it manages everything, sir.
Say, for
VMware.
example, you are having 3 VM instances, VM1, 2, and 3. Now, VM1 is called as domain 0, VM2 and 3 are called as domain U. U stands for user. And domain 0 runs in supervisor mode, and it is responsible for maintaining all other remaining virtual machines. Now, the drawback part of this type of architecture is, if you are able to hack domain 0, that means you can control domain 2 and 3. That means VM2 and 3. Because you are able to hack VM1, which contains domain 0. Domain 0 means it's a management, see here, you can see this here. They're calling it as the management domain, which decides how much resources are to be allocated to VM1 and VM2. Okay, then how to transfer control and resources between domain VM2 and VM3. So providing the resources and controlling them will be taken care by domain 0, that is the first VM instance. So that also can become the drawback of such an architecture. And this Zen architecture is based upon microkernel architecture. You can see the basic functionalities of a microkernel are memory management, CPU state registers, and device input output. And ring 3 is a location where all the user applications will run. And even the guest operating systems will run in ring 1 itself. That's about Zen para-virtualization. So therefore, the example for para-virtualization is Zen architecture, and example for full virtualization is VMware. Now let us see VMware full virtualization. Okay, in case of VMware full virtualization, underlying hardware is replicated and made available to the guest operating system. That means whatever the hardware infrastructure you have, that you need to create, or the VMware will create the virtual image of that hardware, and that will be presented to the guest operating system. VMware implements full virtualization in the desktop environments. When you use desktop based virtualization, that means so where you install the host operating system upon the hardware, then upon that you will install hypervisor, then upon that you will install guest operating systems and further applications. So such a setup is called as desktop virtualization. So that means VMware supports for desktop virtualization. So then we call it as type 2 hypervisor. Sorry, type 2 hypervisor. Then type 1, see, in case of server environment, that means if you have a dedicated server machine and if you want to achieve virtualization, then there you will use type 2 hypervisor. Then in case of desktop machines and in server environments, you can use both type 1 and type 2. That means the takeaway is that for server machines, both type 1 and type 2 hypervisors are supported. Whereas in case of desktop based virtualization, you need to use type 1 hypervisor. Then it supports for both direct execution and binary translation. So direct execution means directly it can execute the directly the guest OS can execute the instructions. Binary translation means it will take the help of VMM, which will do binary translation. Then it can interact with the hardware to execute the instructions. Now look at the architecture of full virtualization. In ring 0, that is where the VMM or the hypervisor will run, and it will perform two basic functionalities, that is binary translation. See, binary translation occurs only when they are running sensitive instructions. So sensitive instructions requires binary translation. For that, hardware will create a trap. Then the binary translation takes place. Once the instructions are translated, they'll be cached for reusing it again and again, so that it can improve the performance. The caching always improves system performance. Then in ring 1, guest operating system will run. So it can also make use of ring 2. Okay, if it wishes, it can make use of guest operating system, can run in both ring 1 and 2, and in ring 3 only user applications can run. Then to run certain instructions, guest operating system can also directly access hardware. So that you can see here certain instructions. That means whenever the guest operating system encounters sensitive instructions, then it can take the help of the hardware. So there can be direct communication without any interference by the hypervisor. You can see here the arrow mark that suggests the sensitive instructions of the guest operating system can be dealt directly by hardware. That's about full virtualization. It is VMware full virtualization. Now let us see what are the virtualization solutions by VMware. So what is VMware? It's a vendor. It's a vendor company which provides virtualization related solutions. For desktop virtualization, let us see what is the solution. To provide desktop virtualization, VMware is having a tool called as VMware Workstation. Even we have used VMware Workstations, isn't it, in our labs? You can see here like this, there will be the interface, and this is a pro version. What they are showing is pro version, and usually what we use, that is the free license. What we use, that is the free license, and this is a professional version, VMware Workstation 12. You can see here, to create a new virtual machine, there is an option. Then to open existing virtual machine, then connect to remote server, then connect to VMware vCloud Air. So vCloud Air is an service provided by VMware to link with cloud computing. That means VMware doesn't provide only just the virtualization services; they also provide cloud computing related services. So for that purpose, there is a interface tool that is called as VMware vCloud Air. Now look at the architecture of VMware Workstation. So in the lowermost layer, we have hardware, okay, and it supports for x86 architecture, and you have the host operating system. So when you install the hypervisor, how it will sit upon the hardware. See here. So actually, what we think is hypervisor will go and sit above the operating system, above the host operating system, isn't it? But logically, how it sits? See, it will partition the secondary memory to host operating system and VMware hypervisor. That means some portion of the storage will be reserved for VMware hypervisor. So then the drivers are loaded into host operating system. See, actually you are installing that VMware on the host operating system itself. Upon you installing that, it will install drivers into the host operating system, and it does the partition like this. Then here you can create virtual machine instance, that is guest operating system. Once you create guest operating systems, you can install user applications. So look at here how it looks. So here you have the host operating system, then VMware Workstation, then user applications. Okay, it will give you the feel as if you are running user applications upon the host operating system. So this user applications represents the applications that you have installed upon host operating system. So these user applications doesn't represent the user applications that you have installed upon the guest OS. Whatever you have installed upon the guest OS are here. So these are the user applications that you have installed upon the guest operating system. Like this, you can create multiple guest operating systems and you can install multiple user applications. This is the architecture of VMware Workstation. So this is important. Then what are the solutions by VMware? Server virtualization, VMware GSX and VMware ESXi. That means to deal with server virtualization, VMware provides two products, VMware GSX and ESXi. So GSX is an little bit older software, and VMware ESXi is a little bit, you can say, that's a modern tool. You can see here a GSX architecture. So GSX is an hypervisor. If you ask me what is VMware GSX, it is an hypervisor which you are supposed to install upon the dedicated server machine to achieve server virtualization. So how you will install? There will be a bare hardware. That means you have a dedicated server machine. Directly upon that you are installing. So that is one thing, and it can also be installed upon the host operating system. So here there is a host operating system. Upon you installing the VMware, so it looks like this, just like the previous diagram. Here you can see the drivers are loaded into the host operating system. Above that you will be creating instances. So this is VMware. What is this? These are nothing but the instances. Instance 1, instance 2, and instance 3. That is virtual machines. See here, and a complete representation of those virtual machines is given here. You can see here VM instance 1, VM instance 2, and VM instance 3. That's what here it is: VMware 1, VMware 2, and VMware 3. And you can see upon that there is a web server. So why that web server is needed? Because to host the applications, web server is needed, and that's the purpose. And this is a server daemon. So server daemon, it's a program which will run in the background to maintain, to look after all these resources. And look at here, what are the functionalities of VMware GSX? The functionalities of VMware GSX is they're providing direct access to the hardware, then to deal with IO operations, then to allocate and deallocate memory, then providing network access for the guest operating systems, then save restore, that means backup and recovery, then CPU state for host operating systems, then to maintain the status of the CPU state registers. That's also one more task of hypervisor. Next, similar to that is ESXi architecture. It is VMware GSX, that is just for your understanding. VMware ESXi server architecture. See, in case of VMware ESXi architecture, there is no concept of host operating systems. It can be directly installed upon the bare hardware. So therefore, it is called as bare metal model or type 1 hypervisor. So if you ask me what kind of hypervisor is VMware ESXi, VMware ESXi is an type 1 hypervisor which can be installed directly upon the bare hardware. So hence it is also called as bare metal model. If you install VMware ESXi directly upon the hardware, we call it as VM kernel. That means it takes the position of operating system, VM kernel, and it does resource scheduling, distributed virtual machine file system. It manages the virtual machine file system, then storage stack, then device drivers. Providing device drivers means like sound drivers, audio drivers, video drivers, and so on. Then network stack, virtual Ethernet, adapter, and switch. So virtual Ethernet is very much essential to provide network access to the guest operating systems. And like this, VMs are created, VM1, 2, and 3. And these are the third-party plugins. Okay, you can to interact with user world API. Okay, so to interact with VMware ESXi, there are certain interfaces. So one such interface is VMware vSphere. You can see here VMware vSphere. It's a interface to interact with VMware. Okay, you see in this diagram you can see here user world API. Then these are the third-party plugins. Okay, so not only third-party plugins, VMware is having its own plugin to provide interfacing. So that is VMware vSphere. We call it as a client, VMware client, or the vSphere client. We call it as vSphere client. That can be installed explicitly, and that is once again a licensed software. Okay, this is a licensed software, and it is having web interface. The web interface version of this vSphere is called as the web client. The web interface version of VMware vSphere is called as a web client, using which we can interact with VMware ESXi server. For example, let us assume from the scratch you have built virtualization infrastructure. That means how to build virtualization infrastructure. So listen properly. Now first you take one dedicated server machine, then upon that install VMware ESXi server version of the software. Okay, what is that? That's a hypervisor. That's a type 1 hypervisor, VMware ESXi. So it will directly sit above the hardware. Then it provides all these services. What you can see here: resource planning, device drivers, storage stack, network stack, and so on. Now, what you're doing? So now you want to install guest operating systems, isn't it? Right now, there is nothing in your machine. So there is a DVD RAM, isn't it, in your dedicated server? So using the DVD RAM, you copy whatever the you load whatever the guest operating system that you want to be part of your dedicated server, so that you can load. Okay, once you load, it will go and sit in the storage area. It will go and sit in the storage area that is linked with your dedicated server machine. Then, as and when you start creating virtual machines, you need to select some which guest operating system you want to install. So from the storage, you can select the guest operating system, like whether you want to install Ubuntu, whether you want to install Macintosh. You can select from the storage and you can make it part of the virtual machine. Then what are the other things that you will select while creating the virtual machine? While creating the virtual machine, you will select for each of the virtual machine, what is the RAM required, what is the storage required, okay, then what is the guest operating system that you want to install and which version. Say for example, you want to install Fedora 12 or Fedora 16, Fedora 20, which version you want to install, and how much storage is required, how much RAM is required, okay, like that. Then also there will be an option, so like you can make it static allocation or dynamic allocation. So dynamic allocation means if you select the checkbox upon requirement, say if for example if it requires extra RAM for processing, it will take from the reserved resources. If you make it static, it will not take. So whatever the processor that you have already customized, that is fixed. So like that, okay, you can allocate. Then the final thing is how to access it. There should be some interface. So one such interface is VMware vSphere. So now the modern thing is that VMware is having web client. Web client means, so you like there will be some IP address for this server, isn't it? There will be some IP address for this server. So just they will give you the IP address of this server. If you type that in the browser, it will open the interface. It will open the interface. There you can access this VMware ESXi server. Then we call that interface as vSphere web client. We call it as VMware vSphere web client. Now, let us see what are the virtualization solutions by VMware. So similarly, it is having Zimbra, vCloud, and VMware vSphere. Infrastructure virtualization and cloud computing solutions it provides. Then VMware provides a set of products covering the entire stack of cloud computing. So that is vCloud and Zimbra. In the next diagram, I'll show you. Yeah, you can see here. This is a complete cloud solution stack provided by VMware. See in the bottom, you have the cloud. So that means already there is a cloud setup. Above that, you are building virtual cloud. So what is the meaning of virtual cloud? Virtual cloud means linking multiple data centers together. So when you create one data center, you call it as vCenter. See, you can where to create vCenter, that is one more question. See, within the VMware ESXi, now just whatever I told, how to do server virtualization using VMware ESXi. So using VMware ESXi, you can create virtual center. That means you can build multiple, you can assume your dedicated server as one very big data center. Within that, you can create partitions and you can call each partition as one vCenter. What one vCenter? One vCenter is nothing but one small data center. You can see here. And students, one more thing very importantly that you need to understand is, see, VMware ESXi can be installed at the scale of data center or within a single server machine. It is up to you, depending upon your requirement. Okay, you need to take a call whether you are installing at data center level or on individual server system, just to show the demonstration how to achieve virtualization. So depending upon your requirement, okay, we will take a call where to install that VMware ESXi. So within that VMware ESXi, we can create the partitions like this. Then there is a software called as vCloud. To manage the vCenters, there is a tool called as vCloud. This vCloud links your VMware, your total virtualization infrastructure with the cloud. It will take care of linking your entire data center setup or entire infrastructure with the cloud. To link your entire infrastructure with the cloud, what is required? vCloud is required. Okay, that's the software. Then vFabric. vFabric is one more tool or the software provided by VMware to deal with platform related virtualization. Okay, to achieve platform related virtualization, vFabric is used. Similarly, to achieve application level virtualization, they have one more tool called as Zimbra. This total diagram represents VMware cloud solution stack. So now look how it is logically related. Already there is existing cloud setup. You want to link your infrastructure with the cloud. So you have vCloud. Then similarly, to provide platform related virtualization, we have vFabric, and to provide application related virtualization, we have Zimbra. Then Microsoft Hyper-V. So this is the last topic, and this is the assignment to you. So you have to learn Microsoft Hyper-V by your own. So that is the task that I'm giving it to you. Okay, students, Microsoft Hyper-V is left to you, and remember, so that will be part of your internal test too. In internal test 2, I'll be asking one full-fledged question, either case study or innovative question on Hyper-V. There will be one 8 marks question. You have to study Microsoft Hyper-V, so which is also called as Windows Server Virtualization. So just you explore about it. You will find a lot of YouTube videos, and you have a textbook. Already I have shared the, I think that Rajkumar Bhuya textbook is available in PDF format. If you can download from the net, that is available. The task is you have to learn Microsoft Hyper-V. So that's the case study I am telling to you. Anything you want to ask, students? Students, you can ask if you want to ask any questions. Hello?
Yes, sir.
You have to learn Microsoft Hyper-V by your own. So that's the task, self-learning component. 1 minute, I'll take the attendance. When was your last class? On Thursday, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Asta Bachawat?
Yes,
Asta.
sir.
Abhinav?
Present, sir.
Aishwarya?
Present, sir.
Arbaz? Arbaz Khan? Arjun?
Present, sir.
Bhargavi?
Present,
Debmalya?
sir.
Okay, Debmalya? Deepika?
Present, sir.
Gangubai?
Present, sir.
Guria Kumari?
Present, sir.
Junjar Singh?
Present, sir.
Kavya?
Present, sir.
Lata? Manisha?
Present, sir.
Pavitra?
Present, sir.
Maithili,
Present, sir.
Priyanka,
Present, sir.
Pawan,
Present.
Akash,
Present, sir.
Rakesh,
Present, sir.
Ravishankar, Rizwan,
Present, sir.
Vishal,
Present, sir.
Savita, Shruti, Sneha,
Yes, sir.
Spurti,
Present, sir.
Srinidhi,
Present, sir.
Vaishnavi,
Present, sir.
Vinny Rana.
Present, sir.
Students, that's all for today. And I have shared the assignment questions, isn't it? Hope you all got the assignment questions. Finish off the assignment and you can write those assignment in sheets. When you come to the offline class, that time you can submit to me. Thank you.
Sir, can you tell higher marks?